probably, at least in my experience, one of the most obvious examples of a leader leading from the back.
I've always had a real resistance to the sort of smartest, I'll say guy, I mean generic guy or girl in the room. You know, you walk into a room and there's one person who knows all the answers and says, and it's not always the most senior, but it's often the most senior historically. And very early on, someone said to me, "You're not a leader unless people follow you. You're not leading unless you're growing people and building people. You can run 300 miles ahead of everybody, but if the people aren't following behind you and aren't with you in the vision and the challenges and then you're not leading, you're just lonely." And I don't know, I just don't, I'm not somebody who walks into a room and sort of starts taking over and telling people what to do. And actually it's far, far more powerful to have quiet influence than it is to have, I mean, you read all these management books about try and speak last and all of that, and I do some of the time. My team actually gave me feedback to say, if you've already made up your mind, don't speak last. Just tell us what's happening on little issues. Just say, I'm already thinking about this. Don't give us half an hour to all talk about it, and then you.
Yeah, right.
If I've not made up my mind, and so we talk quite openly about that, where I'll start an exec meeting and I'll say, I'm thinking about this on these issues, but I'm not convinced, so I need to hear from you. This one's really obvious, so and we've developed and evolved as a team over time with that. But I've never ever thought that I'm the brain in the room that knows more than anyone else, because I'm not. My brain isn't a brain that keeps information in that way. My brain's a brain that makes connections, joins dots, hears from that person and then that person and says, you two need to talk to one another, but if you did it together you would get this. The more I do it and the more I see the results, the more convinced I am.
That's what you do.
For me, it's the right way to lead.
And so when you get people to be on the team with you, do you specifically look for people that would bring a different style?
Yeah, absolutely.
And why do you do that?
Oh, because there's nothing worse than working with people who are identical to you,
right?
right?
Yes.
So there's a couple of absolutes that I look for. I never ever want people who will just say yes to me. So I need people who are comfortable with as little hierarchy as possible. And not all people are. I mean, even senior leaders will come in and say, well, you're the boss, you need to tell me what to do. And I'm like, no, I'm the boss, I need to be here in order to help you do what you need to do. I mean, there are times, don't get me wrong, I'll make a decision if it's necessary. If it's a safety incident, any one of us will, if there are decisions need to be made. I'm talking about complex problem solving, where more minds and more thoughts. But yeah, I'll hire first always for, because these are leadership positions, I'll always hire for leaders who want to grow their team, who want to empower their team, and who are comfortable allowing their team to grow. I've worked with leaders who'd spent their life becoming a leader and aiming for the corner office, and when I came in and said, well, we're not going to lead like that, that's not how we're going to lead, they really found that challenging, because they're like, well, spent my entire career trying to be the boss, and I'm like, well, that's not the way we're going to lead. Because if you lead like that, you've got 6 minds solving the problem. Yep. If you don't lead like that, I've got access to 1,300 minds to help me solve the problem. So it's basic maths in a way. And those 1,300 minds think differently, come from different backgrounds, have different perspectives on life, do things differently every day, meet different customers every day. So their feedback mechanisms are different to ours. And the idea that 6 of us have the knowledge when you could pull on the resources available to you in this pool this size, it's just crazy.
You would have had an idea what your team would look like. So how did you have, I guess, the foresight of saying, I'll trust you enough to decide what happens?
Yeah, I don't know that I had what I wanted it to look like. I had opinions about where we could do things better.
Right.
I had opinions about where things got stuck, or where people didn't have the courage to say yes and were more inclined to say no. And often that was about previous leadership formats and styles, really. You know, there were sections of the organisation that had never been really given the permission to solve the problems themselves. So I knew where they were because I'd been in the business. I was really conscious that I'd looked after a segment. So I spent the first few months talking to the people in all the other segments. I didn't want to bring my sort of preconceived biases about where the blocks might be. I was about 3 or 4 months into it when I started speaking to other general managers about their restructures. And they were all doing I'm sitting in my office every day with spreadsheets working out who should sit where. And I thought, I haven't done it that way. Maybe I've done something, wrong. But I just couldn't think of any other way to do it. I mean, my background's in community engagement and working with the community to solve problems. Yeah. And so the other thing I've got to say is when I first came in, I said, the first time you stand up in front of the staff, I said, I know a lot of you well. I know how good you are at your jobs. I know how passionate you are at your jobs. I'd actually trust you all, and my job's going to be to get out of the way and let you do your job really well. That's my purpose of being, is to smooth out all of the bumps so that you can just come to work and passionately do the stuff that really matters. So I couldn't have started with, hey, I trust you, I'm here. I think you're all great, I trust you. And then to turn around and go, I really trust you, but I'd like you to sit over there and wear your blue socks on Tuesday. And it just would have been, she says one thing and she does another. I think I didn't have that thought process at the beginning. I was kind of halfway through it before I went, what have I done? Have I pushed too hard? Is this too far? But they rose to the challenge, and the results are
speak for
obvious.
themselves.